I'm Eitan Weinstein.
And I'm Naor Menninger. And you're listening to Two Nice Jewish Boys.
This podcast is made in collaboration with the Jewish Journal. In recent years, Israeli cuisine has been on the rise, becoming extremely popular throughout Europe and the United States. This has many people asking themselves, perhaps rightfully so, what the hell is Israeli cuisine? Some critical voices even claim that many of the wonderful dishes Israel is claiming as its own are actually stolen, which of course echoes a longer, deeper controversy that has plagued the Middle East for about a century. In a way, you might say Israeli food is the Arab-Israeli conflict in a plate. But regardless, Israeli restaurants keep opening their doors on street corners in almost every big American city. Lines of clientele stretch around the block, and lines of praise stretch across the food critics' reviews. Michael Solomonov is an Israeli-American chef renowned for his critically acclaimed Israeli restaurant Zahav in Philadelphia. He's the winner of several James Beard Awards, including Best Chef Mid-Atlantic in 2011, Cookbook of the Year in 2016, and Outstanding Chef in 2017. His cookbook, Zahav, A World of Israeli Cuisine, is a huge bestseller. Fortunately for us, Mike is now touring Israel and has been gracious enough to let us interview him here in Tel Aviv. We are honored, we're extremely thrilled, and we can't wait to get started, so let's just get to it.
Hello.
Thank you so much.
What up? How are you guys doing?
Great.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for joining us. So let's start with the big debate. Is Israeli food just a huge cultural appropriation?
Well, I'm glad that you're starting out really light. No, I mean, I think that, listen, I understand where this accusation would come from, right? Because if you want to make a case for Israel not being sort of allowed or having the right to exist, then of course you can use food. But I think that it's just lazy to say that it's only stolen Arab food, because I just think it's inaccurate. And I think that when we were opening the restaurant, everyone was like, what are you going to open? Falafel, shawarma? And it was an issue for us because we were going to investors, a lot of them that were Jewish or had been to Israel or were even Israeli. And they said, aren't you scared to call this Israeli cuisine because it's political? And I'm like, dude, that's where I'm from. What do you mean? Is it political? No. Well, I don't know. There's plenty of American restaurants. I mean, isn't there just as much appropriation, whatever, genocide, all these crazy accusations that are not untrue? But why is it okay? What's the statute of limitation on land or cultural appropriation, and when is it okay? And I think that when it comes down to I think that food is a method, or this arena in which we can discuss these things. We can talk about individuality, independence, appropriation, conflict, commonality. Food is a way to do this. And first of all, food comes from everywhere. Food is not, there was no lemons in the Middle East until the Moors brought them after, conquering everywhere.
Or tomatoes in Italy.
All of it. Pasta in Italy, okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. It all comes from somewhere else. And I think that when you talk about specifically Israeli cuisine, to just say that it was stolen from Palestinians, I mean, that's something entirely different, right? And if you want to be blunt about all this, Palestinians got screwed in this whole thing, okay? And I totally recognize that, and I recognize Palestinians, and I recognize Palestine, and I recognize Palestinian cuisine, but you cannot say that Israeli cuisine is only Palestinian food. It's just not, okay? Borekas on every single street corner tell the story of Jews post-Inquisition leaving Spain, going to the Balkans, getting conquered by the Ottomans, taking with them this Spanish dough that the French took to make puff pastry later on. We don't accuse them of cultural appropriation whenever I have anything made with French puff pastry, but that's besides the point. And nor do I accuse England of stealing fish and chips, which they stole from Portuguese Jews. Okay, we should have trademarked that shit. Yeah, absolutely. So, yes, everything is stolen, right? So then the Ottomans take this Spanish dough and they stuff it with feta cheese, right? and they conquer most of the world, and then we overthrow. My family overthrows the Ottomans using arms borrowed by from Russians, which is why my last name is Solomonov. Actually, the original last name was Bahar. They wanted to honor all the Russian families that helped them overthrow the Ottomans, and they took the last names of Russian families, so Solomonov, right? And then they bring with them this Boreka that has gone from medieval Spain, through the Balkans, revolting against the Ottomans, through the war, through labor camps, on these boats to Israel in 1948, and now we have Borekos on every single street corner.
Right.
Why is that? How is that stealing from Palestinians? It's not true. So I don't want to. It's a dangerous game, right?
Yeah.
And I want to be able to decipher the sort of difference between like what cultural and food and land appropriation is versus what it is that we're talking about. By no means am I saying that there is not a Palestinian cuisine. And I think that speaking, trying to empathize as much as I possibly can, I would say that Palestinian chefs are probably like, dude, why can't you call this what it is? Why, because I think that we have that issue here in Israel and maybe in the States where it's like taboo. We can call it Arab salad, right? We can do, what do you call the chopped salad in the US? Cucumbers, tomatoes. In the US, we call it Israeli salad. What do Jewish Israelis here call it? Arab salad. And so like maybe there's a hesitation to say Palestinian. Maybe that rubs people the wrong way. It doesn't feel quite as comfortable. Maybe it's more taboo. Maybe in the back of our heads, we're in this sort of, we have this pressure with society saying, if we call it Palestinian, that somehow revokes the right for Israeli cuisine to also exist on the same plane. Maybe, right? But like, I don't know. I don't think
It's an interesting point though, because it's true. I don't think most Israelis, when they go get their hummus, they're going to get it from some Arab guy. They're going to Abu Hassan, and they're going to...
Israelis recognize Arab food all day long.
Yeah.
I think that when you introduce Palestinian or Palestine, maybe it makes people feel uncomfortable. On the other hand, like Israelis I've never met an Israeli ever that has said Israel invented falafel or shawarma or hummus, right?
Right.
And I think what happens...
Also, half of the Israelis are Arabs.
Yes, and also Israelis just market
Jewish Israelis.
Israelis market the shit better than other people, and that's fine. But like that doesn't mean we're not claiming it to be ours. I've never ever done that. But the fact of the matter is, I'm not allowed, because I have Israeli citizenship, and because even on my American passport, I'm not really allowed to go that many places in the Middle East. All of the Middle Eastern food, all the Arab food that I've had, all the Palestinian food that I've had has come from here, from Israel. So I can't do more than that. I can't do more than say, I recognize this and I'm sorry that you got the shit under the stick, but let's figure out what the next step is.
How did you pitch Zahav to the investors?
I said, I don't care if this is political. This is where I'm from. And what I said, this isn't just Middle Eastern food. This isn't just Mediterranean food. This isn't Arab food. This isn't just Jewish food, right? When you go to somebody's house here for Shabbat, that's what I want. I want the Moroccan and the Yemenite and the Tunisian and the Ashkenazi and the, Hungarian, and I want Cypriotic, and I want all of that. And I want to discuss what Palestinian cuisine is. I want to talk about what Druze cuisine is, and I want to represent the diaspora that all in the last I want to talk about Georgian cuisine, Ethiopian cuisine. That to me is Israel. You can't walk 100 feet, or 30 meters in this country
Thank you
without
for that.
running into something that is not only evokes thousands of years of cultural heritage, but more than that, it's this gastronomic celebration. It's this explosion of flavor and this walk through history and through crazy stuff like Inquisition, like Holocaust, like independence, like what all these things are, but you can eat it and you can celebrate it and you can sit around a table and discuss it. And as well as I do, there's nothing like going to somebody's house for Shabbat. There's nothing like it. There's like multiple generations. There are these stories, and it's not just
Unless
cuisine.
You come from a Polish family. In that
You know
case.
what? Polish food is awesome too, and it gets a bad rap, but you find it's celebrated here. You know, and maybe now, maybe in
I don't
restaurants.
celebrate it.
Listen, in restaurants, it's just starting, but like the good food, the best food is in the people's homes. And it's not just like Yemenite food it's Jewish, right? So like in a lot of ways, and not only is it laws of kashrut and Shabbat that help give parameters to this cuisine, but it's a cuisine that doesn't really exist in Yemen anymore, right? Because there's no Yemenite Jews.
It's like a capsule, time capsule.
Exactly. So it tells a story, and
There's also, I guess, a level of maybe an element of poverty that's in it also.
Definitely.
Because
100%.
they were always, the most poor.
Well, they were, and what's interesting about that is that, I mean, it's so different than everything else here. But yet now on the shulchan, when you come and sit down at a restaurant, there's schug on the table. Regardless, you could sit at a Bulgarian restaurant here in Jaffa. There's schug on the table, and that that wasn't happening 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. It was harif, or it was like some sort of pickled pepper or black pepper or whatever. Now it's schug. Right? I go to a Romanian restaurant in Haifa, actually 3 days ago, that serves government white bread, serves pork, serves all these things, still tchina on the table.
Right?
Right?
It's a must.
You have to have those things. And now, listen, schnitzel in baguette in Arab cities, in Palestinian cities, with amba, is also kind of Jewish, dude. Like, that didn't come here by accident.
Yeah.
So, like, you can't avoid these things, you know? And I think that with popular culture and with food, it is this arena, it is this place that we can discuss these things.
Do you think in order to be a good chef, you have to be also a philosopher?
Probably not.
No,
but it sounds like you have an angle.
yeah,
Mr.
because all the good chefs are also thinkers. It feels like
Maybe to write a
sometimes.
good cookbook, you have to.
We're all fanatic. I have a very, very intelligent business partner, and that's how you write a good cookbook. He's a brilliant man, and we've discovered this together. And that, so I didn't go to culinary school and say I want to modernize Israeli cuisine, or I want to globalize, because people say modern Israeli. It's not modern. It's, what we have the luxury of doing, not in Israel, is looking at all these different cultures and being able to put them on one plate, which is also cultural appropriation, right? If you walk down the street here in Israel and ask somebody where to go for the best Israeli food, what is the answer? There's no, what is that? There's Israeli food everywhere here, right? But in the States, we can go Moroccan, we can go Temani, we can go Druzi, we can go all these things we can put together in one place and tell the story, and that's the globalization of it, and to be able to mishmash and maybe in ways cultural appropriate, like even Jewish food together. And that's what makes it modern. That's what tells the story.
So, okay, we started off a bit heavy, so we'll
let me ask you, does that answer your question? And you guys living in Israel, I'm the Westerner that's coming over talking about breaking bread and peace and all this cliched bullshit, right? How does it sound to you?
Like you just described it.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
You've obviously lived in Israel long enough where you don't have to sugarcoat things. Yeah. I appreciate that.
No, I don't think it's cliche. I think there's truth to it. I think the whole cultural appropriation conversation is bullshit. I mean, obviously, there's no food anywhere that's anything, and it's just it's all mixed, and that's what makes food interesting. And I think it's cool that Israeli food is it's so fitting that Israeli food is that complicated. It's like if someone was to ask you, where do I get the best Israeli food? You're like, well, I don't know how to answer that question.
Yep.
But let's do maybe a quick, because you said that the best food now is in homes, and we can't really ask you to recommend someone's home.
Yeah, we don't want people's addresses.
Yeah, we don't want people lining up. But let's do maybe a quick and again, this isn't Israeli food. It's the food you eat in Israel. Let's call it that.
No, it is Israeli food. It's absolutely Israeli food.
Yeah.
You want to know where to get the best Israeli food in Israel? I mean, I don't know. There's a million places to go.
But let's do hummus. Where's the best, in your opinion? Maybe even you can give two.
Abu Michel in Lud.
Abu Michel in Lod.
You probably never even heard of it, right?
Never heard of it, but
no.
it definitely.
To me, the best hummus is in Haifa.
Haifa's got really good hummus.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, there's great hummus everywhere in this country, and I think it changes obviously what day it is of the week. Listen, Abu Hassan is great, right?
Yeah.
Hummus Said in Akko, great.
But Abu Michel, you said?
Abu Michel in Lud is the best hummus in the
best
country.
falafel.
Devora in Karkor or Kadori in Orasharon.
Interesting. Also
You
in
guys
Haifa
have never,
to me.
of course.
In Haifa.
And
Have you been to any of these places?
No.
No, I've never,
No.
but I'm going to
No.
try them
I
all.
love this shit, dude. Yeah. 10
That's
years you've been
awesome.
here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the best.
I mean, maybe I've had it because when you're in the army here, you like travel around all of Israel
Yeah.
on Sundays, meeting
Yep.
your whatever in different places, and then you
Yep.
just pick up the closest falafel or shawarma that's there. So
Yep.
maybe,
Right.
but I don't know it. But let's do shawarma maybe, and that's it. Shawarma. What's the?
I think it's really difficult. I think Hakosem here in Tel Aviv is
Did you try
Yeah.
Dr. Shakshuka's shawarma?
no, but I should, I guess.
Yeah,
Obviously
yeah.
now I have to stuff
But
my
they
face
kind
with.
It's
of
the
got
best
they
one.
kind of got like I don't know, too mainstream. They've got
Well, listen. Also in Rosh Pina,
Mm-hmm.
there is, I can't remember what summit that is, but it's on the way to Metula. Amazing shawarma. We had the best shawarma on this trip there. Hakosem is amazing.
yeah.
Hajj Khalil is amazing.
Hajj Khalil in Yafo.
yeah.
Like Kikala Sham. Yeah. I haven't been there.
Sick, dude. Really good. And there's that place in what's the place in the Golan, like right by
Katzlin.
Majal Shams. There's a
Majal
place
Shams.
that's sick too. I can't remember the name of it though.
Okay.
Interesting. And I also I want to talk more about you, like the idea of Zahav. How did it come? And did you always want?
No, so
To-
here's what you ready for the long story?
Yes.
Spiel.
Okay. Hine Sipo. You ready?
Yeah.
Nolarati Po. I was born here in Gnei Yehuda. My dad is from Bulgaria, but immigrated in '48 when he was like a year old. My mom born in Ohio to like Jewish family. My grandfather was very involved in Israel bonds. Instilled probably a love of Israel. Then my mom made Aliyah here. Met my dad. They had me. My dad wanted to move to the States, of course, because he's Israeli. And my mom wanted to stay. They ended up moving to the States. Had my brother David there. We grew up in Squirrel Hill, Pittsburgh, which is like a little shtetl, right? With Jewish and Israeli identity. Moved back to Israel when I was 15. I went to boarding school in Pardes Chana, which is how I know Devora Falafel and Karkor. Stayed for 1 year, moved back, finished my senior year in high school in Pittsburgh, went to University of Vermont. While that happened, my brother assimilated, became Israeli, has bar mitzvah here, went to like middle school, high school, whatever, got into capoeira, and then did what everybody else did and joined the military and became a sniper in Golani Shloshestre. I dropped out of college very quickly, moved here just because I had nowhere to go. Got a job working at a bakery in Kfar Saba, just because I was like walking up the street and needed a job. Like speaking almost no Hebrew with 3 semesters of art doesn't get you super far in the job market here.
Tell us about it.
I'm sure I tell you about it. I'm sure every birthright kid that decides to make Aliyah has got the same story as me. But I had my mom, my parents gotten divorced, but my brother, my mom, and the Russian wolfhound named Fred lived in this little apartment in Kfar Saba. I got a job working at a bakery, fell in love with it. Got a job then working in a cafe. Really loved cooking. Decided to go to culinary school in Florida because I had run out of like my parents' hard-earned money, basically, from snowboarding and smoking weed, which is what you do in college in the States. And then while that happened, my brother, was in Golani and, was a fighter or whatever. So I ended up moving to Philly. I was working at an Italian restaurant named Vetri, and we had this break in August for 3 weeks because it was like he was like definitely wanted Italian culture in his restaurant. So taking a 3-week vacation in the summer is super non-American, right? That coincided with my brother's 3-week little break before the end of his army service. My mom says, I will buy you a plane ticket, but you have to cook dinner for my friends. I accept the offer. I'm thinking that it's like 6 of her friends sitting around the kitchen table, but it's like, in fact, 15 people, 2 nights, 20 courses. It was like she wanted me to like actually cook. And my brother and I had not lived on the same continent in like 3 years or something like that. We reconnected, totally became best friends again, and also traveled up and down the country finding like ingredients for this dinner, these 2 dinners that I had to cook for my mom, right? So I very quickly, fell in love with Israel yet again, because this way it was through the lens of a chef. So we went to Opera in Chadera and got the Yemenite spice from Marak Tamani that I crusted like veal rack with for this dinner. We got amba. We got like, I learning through Israel, through food, from my 21-year-old brother, who was not a foodie, but just understood where all this came from. It was fascinating. So cooked these dinners. In my opinion, I think they were awesome. Reconnected with David, and then left to go back to Vatry restaurant, where I was now the sous chef. My brother, a month later on Yom Kippur, was killed in action. And I, in a way, it's not like fell in love with the country is the right word, but like you definitely, your identity is completely, sort of tuned up or completely fucked up after something like that happens. So I fly back and bury David and then go back to the States and don't know what I'm doing in the States. It was super difficult.
It did it kind of, you felt lost afterwards?
Well, I definitely didn't want to cook like Italian food after that, but I couldn't put my foot on what, I didn't really know what was happening. And it was obviously such a traumatic experience that, it took me 5 or 10 years to figure out what it was that I was thinking, but what I needed to do was be attached to here. And I needed to figure out a way to be close. And for a long time, I struggled with drug addiction after that. I struggled with drug addiction before that, but it crystallized after something like that. So traumatic happens. And I just felt I'd started working out. I wanted to join. I wanted to enlist and move back to Israel and all these things. And what I wanted to do is be closer to David. I'd missed so much time and it was so hard.
And you had just had this this time
it was
with
the
him.
first thing, man. I get there are all these crazy things that happen when you go through that much grief. Looking, coming back from driving after getting this phone call, getting back, it was on Yom Kippur. So all my friends, even the ones that I was super close with still that were with me in the boarding school here, they'd come back from shul, right? Because it was Yom Kippur and their screensavers were Haaretz or Jerusalem Post, and there's a picture of my brother on the front page. So it was all these weird realizations, sort of reinstilling this idea that David was actually dead, right? And then it was the next morning, going to the airport and getting on the El Al flight, and they hand you the newspaper, and the front page was a picture of my brother on a stretcher, with all of his vatikim that were over him, they were all kids that I had met on the beach a month before or in the club or whatever. It was so crazy. And then you get off the airplane and I go to my mom's apartment and all the obituary notices are all over the wall. And it was yet another thing to remind me that this had actually happened, And so I don't know what happened. There are all these crazy stages. So here's what happens, right? So a couple months later, the restaurant that I'm at also closes again for the holidays, which is, again, a very Italian thing to do. So I'm I'm going to go back to Metula and I'm going to cook for my brother's army unit. Shlosha I was still in the old British Mandate base and I want to go cook there. And
this is after.
And my chef and mentor, Mark Vatry, says, I'm coming with you. I'm going to cook with you. And
wow.
And he was like, we'll roast a suckling pig. And I was like, no, we can't do that for the IDF. So we go and we pick Mark up. And I came a couple days earlier to visit my family. And we pick up Mark at Ben Gurion and then drive all the way to Metula. And he's exhausted. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Didn't you sleep on the airplane? And he was like, I was on one of those birthright airplanes. So it was I didn't sleep. It was all these 18-year-old American kids getting whacked, drinking vodka tonics on this 2-week vacation, right? So we pick him up and we go and we cook, and he gets a tour of Metula. And David was killed in an apple orchard on the Lebanese border, right? From Hezbollah snipers that were in Lebanon firing through international borders. And you can't really explain that to somebody, especially somebody in the States. We don't know what that means, right?
Yeah. So this is what, 2003, 4?
He was killed in 2003, so it was probably 2003 or 4, on January 1st, So it was before the Lebanon War, the second or third or whatever. But so we cook, and then at the end of it, Mark looks like he's in tears, and I'm like, what's going on? And he was like, this morning I was surrounded by these 18-year-old American kids that were on their way to this like vacation. And now I'm surrounded by these like 18-year-old, 19 American Israeli kids that are covered in mud, that have like M16s on their back, that have like 3 minutes left to eat, so they can then go out and patrol like your brother did, and it just affected him in a way that maybe it was a light bulb in my head, and I was like, I just need to bring people here because they're.
What do you mean, bring people here?
I need people to understand. A, who my brother was. B, what this country is all about. C, not make these like rash judgments about a place that they don't know anything about, you know? Like my brother was a wonderful, peaceful, fantastic kid, you know? And what he was doing was something that was every Israeli has to do, regardless of where they are in their politics, you know? And all he was doing was responding to a censor on a border with an enemy country and was shot by 3 snipers, and there was a blip on CNN. There was nothing about that afterwards. That should be a no fire zone, and there was fucking Hezbollah on the other side firing into Israel. And I am a peaceful dude, but I'm like, that is nonsense. Mm-hmm. And Americans need to understand what it is that
we just pulled out of Lebanon a couple of years before.
We sure did, and that should be a no-fire zone. And there are UN I did not mean to get into politics, but here we go. There are UN trucks next to Hezbollah trucks that are right over the border, you know, and they're Hezbollah snipers that killed David. And what happened after that? So I'm not saying. And I'm not like, understand, I'm not saying go in there and wipe out Lebanon at all. And I'm also recognizing that those snipers had a job to do, just like my brother probably would have had to do as well, right? If he was ordered. But it's messed up. And I'm like, and David was a wonderful kid that did not deserve to die that way. And I go through, and now, you know, I'm leading these like tours of people, and I take them to Metula. You know,
which is the northest, just
right on the border. It's as far north as you could be, and it's this beautiful. Even the apple farmer who owned the land brought this crate of apples to the shiva, and they were the sweetest goddamn apples I've ever had. And to realize that such a horrible thing could happen, such a beautiful part of the world with such sweet fruit growing, is this crazy ass dramatic juxtaposition that lives. It's in real time here in Israel. It's not a story. It's not a movie. It's not a miniseries.
Even if you look today at that border, it's not that different than back then.
No.
Yeah.
No. So I brought people here on this trip there, and I wasn't doing it because I'm not trying to like promote an initiative that I don't believe in, but like you have to understand that this is what a consequence of this country is, you know? And my brother, you know, and I also said this as well. I'm like, always in one breath, I'm like, you know, this is the consequence and this is the sacrifice that you know, to have a Jewish state. But in the same breath, I'm like, I would give up almost everything that I have, almost everything, for another minute with my brother. You know, and it's a dangerous.
You were 24 at the time, right?
I was 24 and he was 21 years old, and like that was it for him, you know.
Yeah, no, it seems to me it's amazing because it's not. It's like, it seems to me like you're conflicted about the politics, and so you said to yourself, kind of, fuck politics. This happened. I'm going to take people to where it happened and talk about the fact that it happened and talk about something that's true, and at least get people to confront, you know, the reality.
100%. And I think that is, without some sort of agenda, that's the light bulb that came off in my head. It's like, I'm just going to bring people over here, and we do it in a way through food. In the rest, you know, if I could bring everybody over here myself, I would do that, but we can't. So
it's like an embassy.
Listen, there's 300 people all around, between 250 and 300 people that come into Zahav
every day,
that hopefully are touched, hopefully have a visceral reaction to what it is that we do, whether they're Jewish, Israeli, Muslim, Palestinian, like Iraqi, from Mars. I don't give a shit. I want you to come in and eat and experience the things about this country that I love, and the things that my brother died, defending and that, and you can do whatever you want with that. Like, I don't need more than that. And even in a way, somebody asked me about the cookbooks, like, why do you do this cookbook? I'm like, I dedicated the cookbook to my brother, so 100,000 people read his name. That's actually enough for me. I don't need more. That comes out of it. But like, of course, I want to talk about my family history. I want to talk about my the history of this country, these things that I love, and my badass great restaurant and the team, and this cool restaurant that we have in Philly. But I also think that like like I said, there's now this vocabulary, this language that exists amongst people, this food, it's like that line that we sort of tote where it's like we talk about Arab food in this country and that but that means something. That means something that we can then discuss, that we can be diplomats. I mean, diplomacy as we know it doesn't work, right? The people that are in place right now to be diplomats aren't necessarily doing their job.
Nope.
And I don't want to be the American that's coming over here playing kumbaya, saying, I'm going to cook a meal and there's going to be suddenly peace, But you know what? The rest of it isn't working either. So let's
I don't know. I'm not totally convinced. I feel like if people tasted your food, they might actually
I
put
think
their guns down.
Listen, I don't expect that, but I do expect a narrative that we don't see, that isn't right in our faces.
Yeah.
And I do expect a voice from either side to discuss. I mean, it's really difficult for me also, and I'm sure you guys can relate to this, but like, we're always under this microscope here, and it's not, there's something else to it that I don't quite understand, right? There can be atrocities happening all over the world. The moment Israel does anything messed up, it's like suddenly people freak
We're
out.
the devil.
No, it's definitely not proportional.
But isn't it interesting that in America, where America's Jewry it feels parts of it are drifting apart and assimilating, and this is the direction some say the Jewish community is going to. Which is what? To assimilation, and apart from Israel, apart from Judaism, maybe. And then comes your restaurant, and it's like a counter stream to that.
I mean, I can relate, sometimes you relate to your identity through, these reactions, these memories I have from my grandmother cooking are enough for me to be excited about where she comes from and where my family comes from and to have pride, and if that's fine. If it doesn't work in shul, then okay, this is cool. I'm okay with that. And if we have to do hasbara and I have to promote this country and religion and all these things through food, then that's also okay. It doesn't need to be, I don't need to like, and I love federation. I love every aspect of these things. I mean, Israel Bonds is part of like my family's history. It's weird. Yeah. But I don't know. I think I think that the issue is that when you complicate and you put these like parameters and barriers on how you should either be Jewish, be Israeli, be Muslim, like all those things, it's not productive. Black and white. It's not productive and it's not human.
Yeah.
What is human is having a conversation on what is human is falling in love. What is human is talking about the way that you feel and like your relationship to like where you come from. And to say that what relationship has ever worked with zero compromise? It doesn't happen. Yet we do this with like countries where we say, I'm going to put my foot in the sand. I'm drawing a line in the sand and I'm saying, well, this can't happen because of this. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, have you guys ever been like in a relationship?
Many of them haven't.
Okay.
Probably not a normal relationship.
So, right, exactly.
But I want to ask you, because we don't have much time, but you mentioned that David's death kind of led you into this dark place and sent you down this spiral. And I read somewhere also that you didn't even realize kind of where you were at. Like you didn't realize that it was even a problem at the time, which I guess maybe is common to being in that situation with drug addiction. And I'm wondering what brought you. I mean, because you're. I don't want to equate success with kind of being healthy, because obviously there's a lot of successful people who still have those problems, but it seems like you managed to channel it into a place where you were able to pull yourself out of it. And I'm wondering how that happened.
I was pulled out of it and I could lean on people, and my business partner of many years, and my wife at the time and a good friend had an intervention, went through all my stuff and said, you have a problem. We need to take you to like detox and rehab. And my partner, I mean, we'd invested everything together, and my wife and I had been married for like 2 years, and I was hiding an addiction, a serious one, from them. And what a lot of people would do is say, well, I'm so betrayed by you, you're out. And they did.
They embraced you.
They embraced me, and they, not only that, I mean, I couldn't go a block. I couldn't go 10 feet without like wanting to relapse. And, you know, my business partner would pick me up in the morning with his son, and now he's 3 kids, but at the time it was only 1, would pick me up from a 12-step meeting that I would go to, drive me into work. And my wife at the time would pick me up every night and drive me back home. And, you know, I couldn't drive myself, and I couldn't carry money. All those things are like triggers, and it was like diligent work on my part, and also leaning and asking for help.
But did you have any objection at the time that kind of they interviewed? Because I feel like if you didn't realize, you must have been like, no, fuck off.
I
Like,
realized at that time I had been hiding this thing. I was in so much pain, and I'd been hiding this. And my, you know, it's a weird thing, man. When you are an addict, you manipulate people that are alive and dead. And I used my brother's death as an excuse. And that felt awful, awful. And how do you deal with guilt and pain when you're a drug addict? You just go right back out. So it was this cycle, and I felt like I had this opportunity for once in my life to be honest and say, I have a problem and I need help. And then after that, I spent the next couple of years really making amends to my like dead brother, you know, which is crazy, but like I don't know, he deserved it, you know. And I did use him, and it really sucked, but yeah. And so now, what do? We honor our families, you know. I get to get people to know him, and that's also enough. And we celebrate Israel, and we use this platform that now we have with like popular culture and this interest to hopefully be diplomats for a country that I think is very often understood, and a country that I love with its shortcomings. I love this place. I love where we are, you know, and I think that the next stage is that it's really finding commonality and bringing people together. And
You see yourself live here in the future, or opening
I
a
don't know,
restaurant
man.
here?
It's hard. I would like to be here in the summers. I would like my boys to have identity here. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I love Philly. Philly's a great place. And
I have a question. What
Yeah.
would you say to maybe this is kind of too dark to finish with, but what would you say to one of your sons if they said they wanted to join the IDF?
it's a tough question, man. I don't know. I mean, I think it's really difficult to. There's a certain amount of control you have in your life, and I've realized this maybe the hard way, but also now as a parent. I'm like, you know, at some point you have to just trust that things are going to work out, you know? It's a difficult thing. What would you do?
I mean, I've
Just bring
I don't
girls.
have the past that you have, and I want to raise my kids to join, and I think I would be upset if they didn't. But I mean, again, I can't come from the place that you're coming, so I'm wondering, you know, kind of.
Here's the deal. I want my kids to be proud of where they're from. They are from here, and that's fine. When you have to, I had to put my 21-year-old brother in the ground. He will never know my kids. He will never get married. He will never have kids of his own. He will always be a 21-year-old child. And like I said before, we're always in this conflict. We're always in this struggle. I'm always in my head about this, where I, on one hand, know that like the sacrifice that he made, I don't even want to say necessary, but it just is what it is, right? So I get it. This is like a very important place. But like I said, with the exception of only a few things, my kids being one of them, I would give up almost anything to be able to tell him how much I loved him and how proud I am of him, and how to introduce him to my sons, one of which is named after him, and to watch him have a family and grow up. Like, you cannot quantify. There is no metric to human life.
That's the
So I
absurdity
don't
of
know.
life here, of
I know.
existence here.
I
right?
don't know. Right. So I don't know how to answer that question.
I didn't know your brother. I don't know you that well, but I feel like
You certainly do now, bro. You know me well.
I feel like I could say that I think he'd be pretty proud of, what you're doing. He would say that probably, again, I don't know him, but I think he would be proud of what you've done with the situation. It's because
It's
it's an
inspiring.
inspiring, yeah. It's an inspiring story. You're an inspiring man.
And I'll say this. Living here, you see grief everywhere, right? Because your brother's story is the story of tens of thousands of people here and hundreds of thousands of family members. But people deal with that in different ways. And some are more admirable than others. I mean, some people sink and it's heartbreaking, and some people build something. And I think it's beautiful when you see someone who built something out of that experience, and it gives hope. And let's hope we'll have peace one day, although...
If we don't, we at least get some tasty food out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Well, thank you guys so much for having me on.
Thank you for
Sorry
for
for making
coming.
it so...
Dude, bring it, man. This is what we're here for.
But Zahav is your restaurant, and people are
Zahav
invited.
is the Zahav everybody should come to. We've got a bunch. Steve, my partner, and I own a bunch of restaurants in Philly. We are opening 3 more Israeli restaurants in the next year
Wow.
to round out
Nice.
our village. One of them, speaking of village, is named Kfar.
Nice.
Which is going to be a mafia, like cafe, like bakery.
Do you have
named after-
anything in LA or just
No,
okay.
but take a flight over and come
Yeah.
over. It's easy. We'll show you around. But yeah, come to Zahav and say hi. I'm usually by the Taboon making lafa.
Nice.
That's great. And thank you so much for coming. Before we go, we have a collaboration with the Jewish Journal, jewishjournal.com. They have amazing articles, podcasts. Check them out. And
And we do this on our free time, guys. So if you guys want to donate to njb.com/donate, thank you so
and
much.
follow Michael on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's essential.
You have to do it.
You have to.
It'll
do that.
make you hungry.
At Mike Solomonov. Yeah, give me a ring. Come to Philly, say what's up. All right?
Bye, guys. Thank
Thanks,
you so
guys.
much. Bye.